Have you ever thought about what happens hundreds of miles away from land? Out there, in the middle of the endless ocean, where the sea is so deep that sunlight never reaches the bottom. Oil platforms are like floating cities, isolated, self sustained, surrounded by nothing but black water. Most people think they're just workplaces, but those who've worked there know sometimes the ocean watches you back. When night falls, the only light comes from the flickering lamps and the red emergency beacons that blink through the fog. Below the platform, the metal pillars stretch down into the abyss, and sometimes workers hear things. Voices carried through the steel, knocks that echo through empty corridors. There are reports, real ones, of people who went missing during night shifts, of alarms going off when no one was near the sensors. And there are stories that never made it to the news. Stories shared only between those who survived long enough to tell them. Tonight, we'll go deep into three terrifying accounts that happened far from the safety of the shore. These aren't campfire tales. These are true stories. From people who worked where no one should be. So turn off the lights. Put your headphones on and imagine the sound of the wind screaming through the steel towers. Because once you hear the ocean whisper your name, there's no way back. Story 1. The Noise in the Pipes. I started working on the Atlas Deep Oil platform in late 2007. It was my first offshore contract. 3 months at sea, 12-hour night shifts, endless maintenance reports, and a constant humming sound from the machinery that you eventually stop noticing. At least, that's what I was told. By the second week, I realized there's something different about working so far from land. The ocean feels alive. You start to hear things, creaks, vibrations, the metal expanding and contracting, but sometimes it sounds like something breathing. I brushed it off. Everyone told me the same thing. You'll go crazy if you start listening too hard. There were 32 of us on the platform that winter. Engineers, welders, drill operators, and a small group of technicians like me. My job was to check the water circulation pipes on the lower decks, the ones that kept the drilling systems from overheating. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. The first strange thing happened around 2 a.m. during a solo inspection. I was checking pressure readings when I heard a faint, rhythmic knocking. It came from inside the pipe. 3 taps, then silence, then 2 more. At first, I thought it was a valve glitching, so I logged it and moved on. The next night, the same thing. Same rhythm, same spot. When I mentioned it to Clark, the senior engineer, he went pale. He tried to hide it with a smirk, but I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he set down his coffee. "Don't worry about the noises," he said. "Just keep your head down and do your job. Don't go opening anything you shouldn't." That night, I couldn't sleep. The sounds seemed to follow me. Even in my cabin, I could hear faint vibrations through the walls. It was like the entire platform was a massive speaker transmitting whispers from the deep. The disappearance a week later, one of the maintenance crew went missing. His name was Reeves. He was assigned to the ballast tanks on the lower deck, the same section where I heard the knocking. He radioed in around midnight saying he was checking a noise, and then nothing. They searched the entire platform. No sign of him. The only thing they found was his flashlight, still on, rolling in a puddle near a maintenance hatch. Security checked the camera feed. Reeves could be seen walking toward the pipes, then stopping, like he heard something. He tilted his head, pressed his ear to the wall, and froze. He stood completely still for almost a minute before the video turned into static. The file was corrupted. The sound inside after Reeves vanished. The knocking became louder. You could feel it through the floor. People started complaining about headaches, disorientation. Tools went missing. The air down there smelled like salt and rust and I decided to check it myself. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fear. At 1 a.m., I went down with a wrench, a flashlight, and a portable pressure gauge. The deeper I went, the stronger the vibration got. It wasn't random anymore. It was a pattern. Rhythmic, deliberate. The pipes were pulsing slightly, like veins under skin. When I pressed my hand against the metal, it felt warm. Then, something tapped back point 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks that I whispered hello. And I swear to God, I heard it whisper back, "Don't go down there." The voice wasn't human. It was warped, hollow, like water trying to speak. That I dropped the flashlight, and it rolled into the shadows. For a moment, I saw something move behind the grated walkway. A pale shape pressed against the steel, almost fused with it, like a face made of flesh, stretching through the metal itself. That I ran. When I told Clark what I saw, he didn't laugh. He just nodded slowly and said, "You've seen it too." The story they never told Clark finally opened up 2 nights later. Apparently, years ago, before the platform was renamed Atlas Deep, it used to belong to another company. They drilled too far down into a pressurized pocket that wasn't supposed to exist. 4 men were killed instantly when a surge of black water flooded the lower decks. When they drained it, they found strange residue in the pipes, like tissue. The investigation was classified. The company changed names, and the workers who stayed behind started hearing voices. Clark said the metal itself absorbed it, the pressure, the deaths, the life. And now it echoes back. The ocean remembers what we put inside it, he said. And sometimes it answers. The final night on my last shift, the sound was everywhere. Every pipe, every wall, the same rhythm, louder than ever. 3 knocks, 2 knocks, then a long, low hum, like a moan coming from miles below. The lights flickered. The pressure gauges spiked. And suddenly, one of the main pipes burst open, flooding the corridor with boiling water and steam. As the alarms blared, I saw something in the spray. A hand, pale, boneless, pressed against the glass from the inside of the pipe. It slid downward, leaving behind streaks that looked like blood and oil. I don't remember how I got out. They evacuated us that night and shut the section down permanently. I quit the company a week later. Clark stayed. He said he wanted to make peace with it. A few months later, I heard that he disappeared during a solo inspection. The report said he drowned. But the weird part? The area where they found his safety helmet was dry. To epilogue, it's been over a decade since I left Atlas Deep, but sometimes, when I drive past construction sites or hear pipes creak in my apartment, I swear I can hear it again. Point 3 knocks. 2 knocks. Then silence. I tell myself it's just in my head. A trick of memory, pressure, sound. But last night, as I lay awake, I heard it one more time, right behind the wall. And this time, it wasn't knocking. It was breathing. Story 2. The Night Visitor. I worked maintenance on the Atlas Deep platform during the storm of 2008, the one that tore apart half the rigs in the North Atlantic. For 6 days, the wind screamed like a living thing, and the waves slammed against the steel like hammers. The entire platform groaned under the weight of the ocean. By day 3, we were completely cut off. No supply boats, no radio contact, not even satellite. The storm knocked out our primary comms antenna, and we were stuck with backup systems that barely worked. But the real nightmare didn't begin until the night the lights went out. The blackout at 11:47 p.m., power across the platform died. Total darkness. No hum of generators, no beeping sensors. Just the wind that I was in the control room with two others, Darren, the deck supervisor, and Mikkel, a mechanic. We grabbed flashlights and waited for the backup generator to kick in. It usually took less than a minute. It took 10 when the lights finally flickered back on. Darren was gone. We searched everywhere. The corridor, the stairwell, the upper deck, shouting his name over the roar of the wind. Nothing. Then I saw it on the outer walkway. Near the floodlights, there was movement. At first I thought it was him, until it turned its head. The thing in the storm, it was tall. Too tall. Maybe 7 feet. Thin, elongated, moving in jerks, like its bones didn't fit right under its skin. The wind howled so loud I could barely hear my own heartbeat. But over it, I swear I heard wet footsteps. The thing was walking along the catwalk, head tilted up toward the light, like it was studying it. Its skin looked gray-blue, like something that hadn't seen daylight in centuries. When the lightning flashed, I saw its eyes, white, lidless, and wide. Then it looked straight at me. I stumbled backward and slammed the steel door shut. Mikkel locked it and backed away, shaking his head. We didn't speak for almost an hour. When we finally went back to check, it was gone. But the walkway was soaked with seawater, and there were handprints on the glass. Long fingers, ending in sharp tips. The next night the storm didn't let up. We huddled together in the mess hall, trying to distract ourselves with old DVDs, but none of us could relax. The outer walls kept shaking, and every now and then we'd hear something slam against the hull. Around 2 a.m., the intercom crackled to life. A faint voice, distorted by static. It sounded like Darren. "Open the door." Everyone froze. The voice repeated, louder. "Please let me in." We looked at each other, not believing it. Darren had been missing for over 24 hours, and the outer doors were still sealed. Then came the banging. 3 heavy hits on the steel door. Boom, boom, boom. I went to the security terminal to check the cameras. Most feeds were static, but one showed the main entrance. Someone, or something, was standing there, pounding on the metal. The floodlight caught its face. It looked like Darren, but the skin around his mouth was stretched too far, like it had been pulled open from the inside. Water was streaming out of his nose and eyes. Then the feed cut out. Deck 4 the next morning, the storm eased slightly. We decided to check the lower decks. Maybe the flooding had damaged the power grid. As we descended the stairs, the air got colder. The metal under our boots was slick with condensation, and the smell of seawater was everywhere. When we reached deck 4, the door to the ballast compartment was half open. Water covered the floor, just a few inches deep, but it rippled like something was moving under it. "Darren?" Mikkel whispered. No answer. We stepped inside. The sound was faint but constant, dripping, tapping, like droplets hitting metal. And then we heard it, a slow, dragging noise, coming from the flooded corridor ahead. The light flickered. Something moved in the water. It crawled toward us, half submerged, pulling itself forward with long, bony arms. Its skin hung in shreds, and its mouth opened far too wide that we ran. Mikhail slipped, fell, and I grabbed him just in time to see that thing rear up. For a second, lightning illuminated the hall through the small window, and in that flash, I saw its face that it was Darren, or what was left of him. The final hours we sealed deck 4 and welded the door shut. By the next morning, the banging started again from the other side. Rhythmic, relentless, the noise spread through the whole structure, echoing up through the floors. Every time we tried to sleep, we heard footsteps on the metal above us, then below us, then right outside the door. By day 6, the storm finally broke. A helicopter from the mainland reached us at dawn. When the rescue team boarded, there were only 2 of us left, me and a young deckhand named Eliza. Mikhail was gone. He'd gone to the bathroom during the night and never came back. The door was open, and the floor was wet. The team asked what happened. We told them the truth. They didn't believe a word of it. They said the storm caused hallucinations, stress, oxygen deprivation. But as they airlifted us off the platform, I looked down and saw something dot on the outer catwalk. Near the edge of the platform, someone was standing, motionless. A figure dripping with seawater, head tilted toward the helicopter. When the lightning flashed, I saw the face that it was smiling. Aftermath: the investigation classified the incident as a fatal weather event. They never found the missing crew, but a few weeks later, another team was sent to repair the damage. One of them, a diver named Felix, told me something that still keeps me awake. While inspecting the underwater supports, he found handprints on the steel pillars. Hundreds of them, pressed deep into the metal, as if someone had clawed their way up from the seafloor. He said they stopped right at the surface, like whatever was climbing had finally reached the top. That I haven't worked offshore since. Sometimes, during heavy rain, I wake up to the sound of knocking on my window. 3 slow hits, followed by silence that I tell myself it's just the wind. But deep down, I know better, because the ocean doesn't forget what it touches. And some nights, I swear it remembers my name. Story 3, The Last Transmission. It had been 10 years since Atlas Deep was abandoned. The platform sat in the middle of the North Atlantic like a rusted skeleton, half sunken, battered by storms, forgotten by the world. I was a Coast Guard communications officer when we received the call. Or rather, the signal. The distress beacon came from the exact coordinates of Atlas Deep. Impossible. The platform had been shut down years ago, and all systems were deactivated. But the signal was real. The transmission lasted 43 seconds. A man's voice, panicked and distorted, repeating the same phrase. It's not empty. We're still here. The static was thick, the audio warped. But the background noise, the hum of machinery, creaking steel, and something else, breathing, was unmistakable. That we prepared a small team to investigate. Just a cutter and a handful of men, including me. No one expected what we were about to find. Approached to the platform as we neared Atlas Deep, I saw it for the first time. The structure leaned to one side, half submerged, barnacles clinging to its pillars. The rusted hull groaned with each wave. There were no lights, no signs of life, just the wind whipping over the deck. We tied off and climbed aboard. The deck was slippery, coated in algae and water. The emergency lights, which had been off for a decade, flickered on sporadically that I froze that a faint glow from the control room pulsed like a heartbeat. It wasn't possible. The power grid had been disconnected for years. Inside the control room, the door creaked open. Inside, the screens were on, flickering between static and fragments of old security footage. The air was cold, heavy, and smelled of rust and decay. And then I saw him, that a man sitting at the comms desk. Pale, hollowed, eyes wide and lifeless. At first, I thought he was a ghost, but then I realized it was Ben Holloway, the engineer from the first story. The one who had fled after seeing the pipes moved. He looked up at the camera, at me, and whispered something. His lips barely moved. It never left the pipes. Static consumed the feed. When it returned, he was gone. The horror below. We moved cautiously to the lower decks. Every step echoed through the empty structure. The waterline inside the ballast tanks had risen, higher than I expected. Then we heard it, a rhythmic knocking echoing from deep inside the platform. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. That it was coming from the pipes. Then, over the intercom, we heard voices. Not just one, dozens, overlapping, whispering, crying, screaming. Some sounded like past crew members. Darren, Mikkel, Reeves. All the missing ones. That we ran to the stairwell, but the ladder led only to darkness. The air grew heavier, and the hum of the metal structure became deafening. Then something moved under the water, something massive. The steel pillars of the platform flexed as if the thing was testing its grip. The last transmission. I grabbed the radio to send a distress signal. Static. Then a familiar voice, distorted. Don't leave. Stay, we're still here. The transmitter started to fail. Then I saw it, crawling out of the water below, using the submerged scaffolding to reach the deck. That I lost sight of the rest of the team. One by one, I heard screams cut off mid-word. The last thing I remember, the shadow of a figure with elongated limbs, gray-blue skin, face stretched beyond human limits, rising from the sea. It reached for me, and the water surged over the deck. That aftermath. Weeks later, the platform was gone. Not just partially submerged, completely vanished. Satellite images showed nothing but open water. But the signal? Sometimes, on quiet nights, vessels near the coordinates report interference on their radios. A faint knocking, followed by a voice whispering, "It's not empty. We're still here." Investigators say it's atmospheric interference, the sea, or hallucinations caused by isolation. But I know better. I still hear it sometimes. The pipes knocking in my apartment, the whispering in the walls, the sound of something waiting, patient, beneath the waves. Atlas Deep isn't abandoned. It never was. And some nights, I swear, it remembers me. Asterisk the stories you've just heard. They are not fiction. Atlas Deep was never just a platform. It was a place where the ocean remembers everything we do, where metal can hold the echoes of those lost, and the water can carry whispers for years. Even today, the coordinates are not safe. Ships passing near that area report strange signals, knocks on the hull, shadows moving beneath the waves. The sea has its own memory, and sometimes it calls to those who dare to listen. If you felt that chill running down your spine, if the whispers of the deep made your skin crawl, remember, the ocean doesn't forgive and it doesn't forget. And now, if you want to hear more terrifying stories, stories that are true, stories that will haunt your nights. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment about which story scared you the most, because the next story might be closer than you think.